Hello and welcome to Blab, and on this episode we're going to be talking about all things love. So today we have a very special guest, Aaron Zheng,
Hey guys.
and as usual we have some loser named Blake, but that's beside the point. Blake, what's on the agenda for today?
Well, today we are going to be talking to Aaron about regionals and his performances at said regionals. If you guys do not know, Aaron got first at Philadelphia regionals and top 4 at Houston regionals. So good job, Aaron. We are going to be talking to him about his performances and what he did that made him so successful.
Yeah, gonna get some insight on Aaron Zheng. So, first of all, we're just curious about how you came across your team. It obviously performed really well. It did well at all sorts of events. Just curious how it came about.
Right, well, so if anyone's followed me, seeing what I brought to Worlds and whatever, I tested around Gardevoir for a lot towards after Nationals, and I really liked the Gardevoir idea, but I ended up bringing Kangaskhan to Worlds, and Kangaskhan I barely actually used in my games at Worlds, so I knew I wanted to kind of revolve around the same core. Gardevoir was really strong, so was Hariyama, Salamence, and Rotom Heat. So I ended up going to a grassroots tournament after Worlds, and I replaced my Ferrothorn on the team for Mawile. And I realized Mawile was much stronger on the team, but I actually never brought Kangaskhan, so Kangaskhan was kind of the last person or Pokemon that I needed to change. And I tested with a lot of different things, including Hydreigon, Iron Ball, Tyranitar with Fling, but ultimately I decided with Ludicolo because it checked opposing Rotom Heats really well, and yeah, Rotom Heat gives Mawile obviously a lot of trouble, so that basically was how the team came apart. I kind of came up with it after Worlds, just editing my Worlds team. And it did really well in practice, so I figured I would just use it at regionals.
Awesome, yeah. We really saw this regional is Gardevoir was doing very well. So
Yeah.
after Worlds, it's been spiking up, and it's been doing exceptionally well. And it's one of those teams that it's very hard to have good matchups against.
Mm-hmm.
And even whenever you do, it's not necessarily an auto win. So it was definitely a very not surprising team to see do well. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It was definitely it was definitely a really good team. I know a couple other people used variants of it, obviously to perform really well. I know Colin had Gardevoir Mawile. I know Cam's used Gardevoir Mawile. You obviously won with Gardevoir Mawile, so definitely scary. And I know a lot of more top level players knew about the whole combination going into regionals.
Mm-hmm.
So were you afraid of it being pretty hard countered?
I mean, like you just said, one of the most amazing things about it is that it's just such a solid core. For example, my team had a couple of techs to counter all the things that would normally counter Mawile. So you have Tickle and Gardevoir, which is pretty big, and then I had Rock Slide on 2 users, Hariyama and Mawile, and those kind of changed the matchup completely. The things that would normally be used to counter Mawile suddenly, were pretty weak against it. And the whole team kind of played against matchups, so you have different attacks from obviously different Pokemon, but Salaman's focus on the speedy end, and so it's really catered to whatever your opponent had, and there wasn't, I don't think, anything that could have really hard countered it. I guess if you really, really wanted to create a hard counter, you'd have stuff like Taunt on 3 different things and Mega Gengar or whatever, but for the most part, I felt like it was a good call because, for most teams you'd probably see at regionals, everything you have a decent matchup against.
Definitely. And then another question that I have for you is, in an earlier episode, when we talked about the regional winning teams, I said about your team that I felt it was really slow, and I'm not saying that as it was necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just was curious as to how you dealt with the fastest thing on your team being a modest spec Salamence.
Yeah, sure. So surprisingly, modest spec Salamence is actually still pretty speedy, and I feel like Intimidate helps it a lot. Garchomp is normally a pretty scary Pokemon, but you add in Intimidate, and then you have Mawile in the back to Intimidate as well, and suddenly it's not really that scary. And having 2 Intimidators on the team really, really helped because it shuts down a lot of the faster physical Pokemon, for example, Kangaskhan as well. And it was so easy to set up Trick Room with this team because I had 2 Fake Out users in both Ludicolo and Hariyama. So if I really, really wanted to set up Trick Room, I almost always ensured that it would go up. And then, once Trick Room was up, it was just down to Mawile to finish the job. But The speed really didn't concern me very much. Salamence was still a pretty good Pokemon because it outsped a lot of things that normally threatened my team. So a lot of the times I'd actually lead with Salamence and Gardevoir, try to pick up a KO with Salamence, bait the attack onto Salamence, they would KO it, and then Trick Room would go up and Mawile would just go on to sweep. So speed wasn't that much of an issue, especially because Fake Out was so easy to set up, or Trick Room was so easy to set up with Fake Out.
Right, yeah, that's what you were saying about like foddering off Salamence
Yep.
is part of the reason why teams like that work so well. If you can successfully KO something and then have that Pokemon go down, then Mawile comes in for completely free, it's completely fresh on the field, it didn't take any prior damage, and it just goes crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah, that is actually one of my favorite combinations from past metagames, is what I like to call Fast Room. It's where you had like a Choice Scarf user and
Right.
a Trick Room setter as your lead, and then either A, you try to get off a big hit and then die, or you get off a big hit and then able to switch out, and then once Trick Room finally ends, it's coming back out and you're once again faster.
Exactly.
I really did like your team. I was just curious about how you dealt with some of the other combinations
Right.
with, like if you
Right.
didn't get up Trick Room.
Yeah. Alright, so Aaron, so after you won Philadelphia, you posted a team report on your YouTube channel. But out of curiosity, why did you use practically the exact same team at the following regional with everyone having access to said team?
Right. I mean,
What was your thought process?
yeah, the main reason was I just didn't have enough time to get another team together. But like I said, this is one of the teams where even if your opponent knows every single set going in, like it's just such a solid team that if you play well enough, you can still come out on top. A lot of the teams kind of rely on the gimmicks. Like this one, you look at team preview, you can kind of see what's coming already. I actually changed the item on Salamence to Life Orb and added Substitute and Protect just last second to try it out. It ended up actually helping out, so it was pretty cool. But right, and that Spec Salamence is probably one of the things that if your opponent knows your specs, it can kind of work against you. So I decided if there's anything I would change, it would be that. But everything else was just so solid that there was no need to change it. And yeah, I got pretty lucky in my matches, definitely. But I don't think like most of my games that my opponent having knowledge of my team hurt me. Obviously, sometimes it's better to change up your thing, but for this case, I felt like it was such a solid team, and I was playing well enough already with it that I was just going to stick with it since I had so much practice at that point with the team.
Right. Okay. Yeah. See, because recently I've been like trying to think about how I've been doing well at events and stuff, and I noticed that if you stick to what's comfortable,
Exactly.
you're at least gonna do well. You're at least gonna go positive.
Right.
So like sticking with what's comfortable, obviously for you has pulled through and shown that it's a viable idea.
Definitely.
Just like sticking with what you're good with.
Exactly.
Yeah. And touching back on the whole thing with you posting a video, I am not going to lie. I was at the second event, and I'm not going to lie. I put something on my team that I thought was going to hard beat all the people using.
I think everybody did. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. I came up with a kind of a weird thing. It was a guy that was already on my team, but I used Taunt Will-O-Wisp Gengar because I thought that one with a focus sash because if you decided to protect and do all these shenanigans, I could live and hopefully try to get off a taunt.
Right.
I don't know. I just thought I needed something to give me a chance because the rest of my team was pretty weak to Gothitelle Mawile, and so knowing you were coming, I definitely needed something for that.
No, I think that's a really smart call. For me, I knew there were going to be a lot of players that, if I were to run against them, my chances would probably be not, very good. But at that point, I was like, I have a solid amount of CP at this point. I'll take a top 8 or even a top 16 finish, and that means I can afford a couple of losses against the better players. And so my goal was just to kind of beat, the players that maybe didn't know about my team as well, or obviously weren't as stronger players. And I definitely got lucky, like, avoiding most of the top players throughout the day. And obviously, like, once it came to Colin, his team actually matched up really well against mine. His Hydreigon was faster. He's obviously very skilled with Mawile as well. So, when it came down to playing the really skilled player, I ended up losing. But I was pretty fortunate in terms of matchups, and, that's kind of one of the things that goes into tournaments. Kind of getting lucky and avoiding good people throughout the day, but that's what every tournament's like.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, on that, I wasn't saying I auto beat you because your Gothitelle Mawile matchup was actually way harder for me than actually Colin's was because I tested with Colin and everything. Just because you had the dual fake out, which was not easy for my team.
Right.
But I was just saying, like, I was just curious how scared you were of people doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you guys were very good players that were attending there, so I figured you'd probably have something. And then I figured, it would probably come down to just whoever played better in the game. But it was a risk I was kind of willing to take just because I was, there were obviously a good group of good players going there, but the majority of players were still kind of like not on that skill level, or probably didn't bring something to counter it that hard because they weren't that aware of the meta. So I figured it was worth it, and luckily enough, it paid off.
And definitely, I do think it was worth it. And another thing about that is you don't always play skilled players.
Right.
I've had a story of like 5 different tournaments in this case. Whereas at Houston, whenever I won my first tournament, I played tons of good players, and I played tons of people I didn't want to play.
Mm-hmm.
But then at a tournament that I played the next time, I went in and I didn't play anybody until the last 2 rounds.
Right.
And so it's a matter of you don't always play the players that you're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you go to a tournament with like 18 top names, and you could go through the entire tournament and not play any of them until cut or something. Like, Blake and I went to the same tournaments for however long we've been playing.
4 years.
It was at a Premier Challenge this year. It was the first time we ever played.
In top 8, whenever we were trying to eliminate each other, that was great.
And then we played each other at both Premier Challenges.
Yeah,
at
we
Houston,
did.
Which was fun. He foiled me in
Yeah.
the last round of Swiss for who cut. It was fun.
Oh, that was a blast. Yeah. So I mean, I know I personally switched a few things to help. Like,
Right.
I even used taunt on Talonflame instead of protect,
Mm-hmm.
which actually ended up paying off against Steven, who used Smeargle.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, so going off of the fact that you figured a lot of people would have stuff prepared for you, was there anything about your opponents that surprised you? Were you going in and being like, they have nothing for this? Or elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, the taunt thing is really interesting, because, like, in practice, I've seen it so much that now when I lead, for example, Solomon Scott the Tail, I actually assume that Talonflame's just going to taunt me on the first turn, so, like, I prepared a lot to the point where things didn't catch me off guard, even, like, small techs here and there, and taunt is one of those moves you have to assume, like, if a Pokemon can get it, it might use it against you, so when I saw Gengar, Aerodactyl, Talonflame, I always assumed that a taunt was probably coming, and a lot of the times I would actually choose not to lead with Gop. But yeah, like, there were still a lot of the teams that were just completely unprepared for Goth Mawile, though in this tournament it felt like most players had some idea. Like, I mean, obviously when it's this after like such a dominant showing, Gothitelle Mawile is picking up popularity, you're gonna have to be able to prepare for it. So I think players were a bit smarter about that. But like I said, it's such a strong core that it was just able to run through a lot of the teams kind of even autopilot mode without predicting, because when you're able to lock your opponent in, like, that's just such a good ability.
Right. Yeah, that was a deadly combination. Like, yeah, it's a great archetype that could really catch people off guard if they're not prepared.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. What else do we have here? Oh, okay. So, at Houston, someone crazy, might need to go to an insane asylum, made a fake Twitter for you.
Who would do that? Ridiculous.
I know, right? Who would do that?
I think we need a
stalker. So what
do something
else
about that.
has the community done that's just made you laugh? That's just been like, this is why I talk to these people, stuff like that.
Right. I mean, in general, like, for Texas specifically, first of all, that Twitter account was hilarious. I enjoyed it very much. But
Thank you.
just like the ability, it was really cool coming to Texas, seeing you guys especially, because when it comes to the larger events, I know we kind of have different groups, so we don't see each other as often, but I think it's really cool that, I can fly out here and hang out with you guys and still have a blast. And in general, it's like, any regional competition you go to, you always see a great group of people. And just in general, there aren't any crazy examples like that Twitter account, but the community as a whole, it just always like makes me laugh at tournaments. Everyone's really welcoming, just hanging out between rounds. Everyone's really supportive as well, wishing each other luck. And I really, really appreciate that about the community. And I'm really hoping that we have a CP bar this year for invites instead of, top
I
X.
hope so.
Because everyone's so much more supportive when there's a, if there's a CP bar.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know that Zach came up to me. He's like, okay, so this is a situation. for me to get into Worlds,
Yeah.
Judy has to win, Gavin has to win. Or no, Judy has to lose, Gavin has to win.
Right.
Or vice versa. So
Yeah.
one of his good friends was gonna have to lose, and he was like, I don't know what to do. It was so it sucks. Like
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, top 16 like tears apart some people. Oh, it sucks.
The other crazy situation about that was whenever he told us that Logan was the one that was playing
Yeah.
Gavin,
Right.
and Logan and I have been friends since
Houston, whenever you played him.
no
Or was it before that?
The Houston, when I won, I played him in top 4, but we were good friends before that. We actually built together for that tournament. We played at the Houston regional before that, so before we were actually known in the community, we played, and we both went 6-2. We were both completely average players, and we both had horrible teams looking back at it. But we've been friends ever since, and we built together and everything. And then I'm also really, really good friends with Zach, so I was like, wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
This game decides which of my good friends makes Worlds. Whereas if it was a CP bar, they both likely would have made it in, because I assume last year it would have been around 300.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was last year was interesting. Also, we got 2 charity invites for like 2 divisions, or we got 1 invite per division. That was like a charity. That was interesting because they had ties.
Oh, that's
and
right.
stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I think we have one more question. Ben, I feel like you should ask this.
Whenever I introduced this episode having to do with love, there was a point. All the viewers of this show are definitely curious what is the status of Aaron Zheng's love life.
My status currently single, awaiting college results. Then we'll see.
Oh yeah, no ladies chomping at the bit.
Not right now, man. Not right now.
So are you trying to tell us that you're not single and ready to mingle, Aaron?
Oh no, I am. I'm totally single and ready to mingle, dude. We're single and not ready to mingle right now, but
there you go.
soon
Okay,
ready to
gotcha.
mingle.
So we got another question along these same lines is, I know this one works for me especially. It probably works even better for you. Do you just ever say, "Hey, I'm a Pokemon master"?
Oh,
And
dude,
then the ladies swoon.
all the time. It's a good cause.
That's definitely how I landed my current girlfriend. 100%. I said,
Take notes,
hey,
everyone. Take notes.
Hey, check out this trophy that I won for playing Pokemon. And she's like,
Oh my god.
Show me more.
Works every time. So then I
hope
showed her
the
all my other
listeners are
bricks.
taking notes right now, because that's some
Yeah.
pretty big advice.
Yeah, that's huge. That's life changing.
Got all these bricks.
All right. Aaron, any other thoughts about regionals or possible love lives?
Well, touching on regionals, I think one really interesting thing was I ran into a Gardevoir in the second to last round and last round of Swiss, and that actually gave me a lot of trouble. Gardevoir somehow ended up being a really good counter to my team because it would just trace Shadow Tag without me realizing it got traced, and then I was like, oh, great, I'm trapped in. So for my 7th round, I led Malwa and his Gardevoir had Will-O-Wisp, and I couldn't switch out. So I was, and he had a Kangaskhan to fake out my Got too. So I knew my Malwa was gonna get burned right from the start, which was really bad. And I ended up losing that one because I, stupidly enough, led with Mawile. And then in the 8th game, I actually played the player that Ben, I think, lost to with Encore Gardevoir. And I led with... Colo Gothitelle. He had Aerodactyl Gardevoir, and I was like, okay, easy play, fake out Trick Room. And then his Aerodactyl protects, so I was like, okay, and then the Gardevoir encores my Ludicolo. And I realized I'm trapped in, and I was like, okay, I think I just lost this game, but...
Yeah. I think he actually told me about that. Because, like, I talked to him, he's like, yeah, I just encored his fake out. I'm like, oh my god, that's evil.
It was such a good play, and I had to get very lucky in the end. I made some nutty plays, got some crit hacks as well, and ended up pulling through, but... That was crazy. Both games, Gardevoir just gave me so much trouble. So if you need a good way to somehow check Mawile and that whole Gothitelle Trick Room core, definitely consider Gardevoir because it's surprisingly good.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I'm going to go ahead and elaborate on the whole Trace Gardevoir thing really quick.
Yeah.
So, first of all, whenever he sent out his Gardevoir, I was writing down a note, so I didn't see Trace activate. And he had a Garchomp, so I just assumed he had telepathy. So I was like, oh, So it just made sense in my mind. And so I go for Earthquake, and he traced my Hydreigon's levitate, kills my Hydreigon. I send in Mawile and kill myself, and I can't do anything to touch. Oh, it's so sad.
For anyone who's wondering, Ben had a banded Garchomp.
I had a choice banded Garchomp. But yeah, that makes a lot of difference. Like,
Yeah.
Why do you keep going for Earthquake? Oh my god, I cried. Not really, but still.
I cried after I heard that. You like told me
I
between
know.
rounds, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah, and that made me miss out of the coveted top cut spots.
Regionals is beautiful, you know?
It was. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was great.
It was a blast, yeah.
Yeah. Alright, so I think that's all the content we have. So, moving on to our obsessions of the week. So, Aaron, since you are the guest, you should go first. What are you currently obsessing over this week?
I am obsessing over my brand new shiny iPhone 6, which is a big upgrade from the previous one I had, the iPhone 4.
Wow. Wow.
The generation gap.
Going from dinosaurs to spaceships.
I know, it's honestly unbelievable. Before, like, I'd open the Facebook app, and then it would just close. Like, it wouldn't even load. Like, I had to rely on my browser, like, to check
wow.
Facebook, because that was faster. And now I click on it, and, like, the notifications refresh instantly, and I'm asking myself, like, what was I doing for the last 3 years? Like,
Yeah.
why has this just been in my life?
That's crazy.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
I love the iPhone 6. It's beautiful.
Wait, Ben, you got the iPhone 6 Plus, correct?
I did get that.
Oh my goodness.
Is it bent yet?
Is it bent yet? It is not, because
Okay,
contrary to popular belief, it does fit in my pocket.
Wow. Crazy.
Props to you, then.
I did have to custom order some new pockets, but that's beside the point. No, not really. It's fun. I love it. It's beautiful. I
Alright.
like playing games on it because the screen's so big.
Oh, it's so nice.
Okay, so Ben, what is your weekly obsession?
My weekly obsession for the week would have to be Aaron Zheng's new iPhone.
A very solid choice.
He's been tweeting about it. He's been updating his Facebook. I even follow him on Instagram, and that choice selfie. Oh, gotta say, my weekly obsession is Aaron Zheng's new iPhone.
Okay, well, well, I would have to say that mine, non-seriously, is obviously Aaron Zheng's new iPhone. I'm sure Aaron Soccer would approve as well.
Oh my goodness.
But seriously, my weekly obsession is Kendrick Lamar's album, Good Kid, Mad City. It's amazing.
It is fantastic.
Yes, it's a great album. So yeah, that's what I'm obsessing over.
Alright, do you want my real weekly obsession?
Yes.
As choice as Aaron Zheng's iPhone is. My actual weekly obsession is the song Mind Over Matter by Young the Giant.
Alright.
It's beautiful, it makes me happy, and I listen to it a lot.
Good musical taste, both of you.
Good stuff, yeah. Yeah, we're amazing.
What can you say?
Yeah, exactly.
We're pretty great.
Yeah. Alright, so I think that wraps it up for this week. I've been Blake.
I've been Ben.
I'm Aaron CT Cybertron Zhang.
There you go. And that was our Skype call.